Good afternoon and welcome to All Things Newark. My name is Karen Dinkins and I'm your host. We have a lot to unpack today, so let's get started. Our topic today is the post-election blues. Many people wanted to move the country forward in a new direction, but people wanting to make America great again won the fight. It boggles my mind that Americans voted for a wannabe dictator, fascist, twice impeached, 34-count felon with the worst record on protecting clean air, who doesn't have a single policy to help the American people. Trump is a racist, teller of untruths, adjudicated sexual abuser. Trump is the person that mismanaged the 2020 coronavirus disaster that killed more than 1 million people. And he persuaded America to put him back in the Oval Office. You can understand why some people might be a little concerned about this new election cycle. But here's the kicker. You had a more than qualified person who lived their lives as a servant to the people, who believes in strengthening families, protecting freedoms, and building the middle class, had laser vision on how to make our lives better, and was outright rejected because of her policies and because she was a black female. What does that say about America? What does that say about we the people? Our country, in my mind, has sank to an all-time low. The Democrats have been on a political roller coaster since Biden's weak performance against the debate with Trump. Now that everything is leveled out, we have to ask ourselves, where do we go from here? How do we navigate the next 4 years when people are afraid of the Trump remix? It's an open season for bigotry and bad behavior because they're taking their cues from the man in the Oval Office. Well, our guests today are going to share their stories about their feelings on the topic, and we have Drew Johnson here, who is going to give us some words of wisdom and coping mechanisms to get us through this winter of our discontent. So, just going to ask everybody, Lou, where were you and what were you doing the night of the election, and what were your thoughts when you saw the exit poll numbers coming in?
All right, so I was at home. I don't watch TV.
Okay.
So I was not watching the results come in. But I was very optimistic. I was confident that Kamala had it. I went to sleep. I'm like, okay, we're going to have a black woman as president. And when I woke up the next day and I saw the results, I was shocked. I was in shock. Even now, almost a month later, I'm still in shock. I don't think I don't want to think about it too much. I really don't want to think about it too much. I read somewhere where someone said that we have to stop saying that that America is better than this. No, this is America.
That's right.
Right? This isn't like, oh, oops, we made a mistake and elected this man. This is the second time we elected this man. This is who this country is. Mm-hmm. And accepting that, I think I'm having issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Michelle, what about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm having a hard time accepting it. I went through a bit of a depression and a withdrawal from watching TV, and just in my feelings, just not quite sure, not understanding what exactly happened. I was very optimistic about Kamala coming in and just couldn't believe that it was actually happening in real time.
Mm-hmm. And Pat?
I was with Senator Brittany Timberlake, and we were at the Essex County Democratic Party, and the numbers were coming in and they weren't looking good. Then we went to the Montclair Dems party and she gave me a ride home. And by the time I got home, I said to my husband, I don't think this is going to happen. And my feelings are, and it's been my feelings all along. I don't blame Kamala Harris. She had 3 months. The Democrats don't brag enough. They don't point the finger enough, and I've been saying that from the beginning. So all this is going through my head. But at the same aspect, what you said is the fact that people close their eyes to all the truths that they have to know that are true, and that this is America, and that's the saddest part of all. That is, and for the 8 million people that didn't vote this time, what is wrong with them? Why didn't they take part of the process? We know what we're going to get with this man.
Right.
We know what we're going to get with this man. And yes, I cried, just like the last time. And then I cried for 2 weeks afterwards because we know what we're going to get with this man.
And Queen Mother Imaku.
Well, I went to bed early. I saw how things were going, and I thought, well, unfortunately, this is what it looked like it was going to be. It's not what I wanted it to be. I was greatly disappointed. But I remember back before Biden stepped down, and there was conversation about, well, what if, and then who should. And Kamala Harris's name came up, and at that point I said, the United States is not ready to have a black female president. And this is just borne out what I knew. I campaigned, I did everything that I could as an activist, also as an artist. But what we're looking at is the truth of where we are. And so, I grew up in Kenilworth, seeing crosses burned. I was born in 1960. I was raised there. This is New Jersey, yes. So all these feelings I recognize easily. I feel that there are too many people who are disconnected from that and don't recognize that's what played into his getting the numbers that he got, because we have so many people who are completely disconnected from that experience. So even though I went to bed and said, okay, so I'll keep my fingers crossed, but I really don't think this is going to turn out the way that I really want it to be, it wasn't surprising, unfortunately.
Okay. Wait just a second.
I wanted to add one thing. I was very proud because I met you in Pennsylvania, and I spent several weekends, my husband and I, in Pennsylvania for like 6 or 7 weeks, and then we started to train people. And the amount of buses that came in from Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, I actually started to have hope that the vote would get out, and the fact that she was a woman, an African American, would have nothing to do with her qualifications. I had hope the last few weeks, and then unfortunately it faded.
Right.
But I was proud of those people.
Yeah, I was too in Pennsylvania. The busloads of people that were pulling up and wanting to roll up their sleeves and knock on doors. As canvassers, we were tripping on ourselves because there were so many canvassers. But Queen Mother Imaku, I wanted to, you had said it was a wake-up call when we were talking earlier. Tell me more about that. Why did you say that?
Because we are a country, the world is very much driven by images, television, and we're not really cognizant of the fact that these are geared a certain way. So we have a lot of young people who, as a result, have bought into all that's in the media, starting from when Trump had his show The Apprentice. Even though there's been nothing to bear him out as a successful businessman, there was nothing that gave him merit to be able to have a show like that. But the image gave another whole notion to people. So there is that, and then also there are people who just really they get a rise out of folks who seem to get away with things when they break the law blatantly, and so that's an issue too. I spent a lot of time as an educator teaching our culture, whether it's through art, whether it's through lecturing, whether it's through teaching. Because we are losing touch with who we are and what we've been through. I remember what it was like going to school with kids who couldn't stand me, and parents who couldn't stand me, and teachers who couldn't stand me, who were programming negativity into me. I worked hard in raising my children so that they would be successful and also deal with the reality, because we moved from this area to Warren County, not knowing that the Klan seat was there, but it made us strong, and my children were in touch with and continue to be in touch with their roots. So we have a generation later that doesn't really know. And additionally, we've been made to believe that things are okay. We have not arrived yet. We still have work to do. As an activist, I can tell you, and with all of the atrocities that continue to happen to us as a people, we have not gotten there yet. So the media has done a great deal in bringing this false notion of parity when it is not there, of hope when, I'm not saying we should be hopeless, I never say we should be hopeless, but the fact is that people have not been really tuned into what's really going on. We had George Floyd that happened. There was a 10,000 people rally right here in Newark 4 years ago. And what's happened since then? Gone back to sleep. The whole notion of wokeism is just a term.
Yeah.
We're not really awake.
I want to ask everybody on the panel, just briefly now, why do you think that Trump had such an overwhelming support? Why?
So I agree with Queen Mother Amaku. Social media, the news, the television, the phone, the TikTok, the disconnect of this generation, you know, to what we experienced. Not me personally, but what African Americans went through in the 50s and the 60s.
Right.
They just don't, they can't relate to it. So they bought into this image of Trump being, I really believe this, bought into the image of him being a successful business person. And also too, Queen Mother Amaku said that some people like the winners, or that type of negativity of beating or getting away with something, you know. So I think that's part of it. Like and just ignorance.
And
ignorance.
What really does that say about the American people? Because that is very shallow behavior, and they want to be entertained, and they're not really looking at the situation at hand and where our country is going. We're getting ready to implode. There's so many wars going on around us, and we really need a leader.
It's bad, right? So it's, while Queen Mother Amaku was talking, and especially when we're talking about the generations, the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds right now, I don't think we will ever get them to relate to what happened in the 50s and 60s, right? We can't go back. We have to deal with what we have right now, and we have to come up with a way for them to use their experiences now and educate themselves, right? And prepare themselves to move forward. But I know a lot of older people, we want to say that, you know what, you guys, this is what happened in the 50s and this is what happened in the 60s. A 20-year-old can't relate to that.
That's true.
Right?
Well, there's one other thing too, because I have to say that there are a lot of activists that are kind of stuck in the past also in terms of how we should approach where we are right now. We have to face the fact that we're in today.
Right.
Yes, we're dealing with things from the past. It's still here. But we have to be cognizant of the mindsets of young people, how to reach young people, and how to approach where we're at right now. For me, financial education should be pushed. Also, we should focus on unifying and also the worth of that, and being able to hustle our resources up together so that we are not in any kind of economic peril. I mean, this is something that we've also kind of gotten away from as well. I came up seeing my grandparents, who were sharecroppers with nothing, come from North Carolina and come to New Jersey and make themselves business people, landowners. When they died, they had no debt. You know, they left generational wealth behind. But the thing is, in spite of what they came out of, because of the fact that the family and the community galvanized, everyone was able to do well, and everyone looked out for each other. We need to focus on doing that right. We lost that, yes. We're in an age where we're dealing with the internet. Let's use the internet in putting more positive programming out there and getting it to our community, okay? That's why I started my own multimedia company, so that we could, just to be able to reach out to our people and understand, help everybody understand what would be beneficial to us in the here and now.
Right. I agree with everything that you're saying, but also there is a gap between the younger generation and the older generation. Because we are still, let's march, let's do this, let's do that, and then the other The younger generation is all about social media and communicating and not really getting the facts.
Right.
They're getting the facts according to so and so who's ever leading the podcast. So we need to find a way to try to bridge that gap and to come together. And Pat, my question for you is, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe the Democrats are having an identity problem. Maybe that was some of the reason that more people didn't come out in support. And what do you think about that? Do you think maybe we need to go in the toolkit a little bit and retool the Democrats' image?
Well, first thing I want to say is that Donald Trump went bankrupt 3 times, and one of the times he was still paying himself, I think either it was $1 million a month or $1 million a year while he was screwing his investors. He is a thief, his father was a thief, and his grandfather was a thief. Let's get that clear, and he's going to fleece America.
Oh.
And I think, I want to answer your question, but I think that you guys are both right, but as I said, I've made this little website called Street Facts Pat, which has documentaries about history. I wasn't alive during World War II, but I understand what the Germans did. I don't think young people understand history. They don't watch films. They stay on these little TikToks, and I agree with you. And I think that the Democrats need to come up with, it's the last 40 years, the Republican Party, Paul Weyrich, who created the Heritage Foundation, has tried to tear down what FDR did for 40 years, which made us all middle class, and not necessarily African Americans middle class, but my family who came from Italy, you know, I'm the richest I'm the 3rd generation, and I'm the richest, and I'm not as rich as I thought I was going to be. Not that I'm rich, but you know what I'm saying, I have a roof over my head. And I think that, and they did it using racism, using abortion, using fear-mongering of all these white people. And now black people are believing the fear-mongering, which really frightens me. And they're not seeing that these people are bearing false witness. How do we get the young people and the Democrats? I think there has to be a positive message, but I think they have to be honest, like Bill Clinton. They need to come down and be honest and say, look it, this is where we're at. This is good. They got 20 million new jobs. Unemployment is down. Salaries are up. But yeah, prices are up because CEOs who got a $2 trillion tax break turned around and raised the price of bacon on you.
Right.
We need to be, I think, more honest. I don't know, you know, other than I say we should use music because, you know, in advertising and stuff, and advertising across all the mediums, which I understand the Democrats did not use social media well enough in this campaign. But I think we need to come down to earth and be honest and not be afraid to offend anybody. Not be afraid to say, look it isn't perfect. Life isn't perfect.
Right.
But we're doing the best that we can to deal with this situation and that situation and be more open and honest. And I will tell you the one thing that, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but that really was a turning point for me that got me a little nervous was when they had that town hall with Kamala and she gave them talking points and she didn't talk to them. She talked to them afterwards. And she needed to come down to their level and say, look, you don't have to have an abortion. But there's health care and women are dying. You have to make a list and look at both sides of the coin.
Just as a point of
Am I
fact.
making any sense?
Yes, but just as a point of fact, please do your research. There was a very strong black middle class. Check your history, please.
Oh no, I'm sure there was.
No.
But I'm just saying, it's harder all around when you're an immigrant and with how they demonize people. It's horrific, and we're off the point. I don't know what the Democrats need to do. I think they need to be more honest.
To be more honest and to be more aggressive.
Yes.
Yes, and to be more outspoken on issues and
Loud and proud.
hit their chest when they do something good, because that's what Trump is masterful at. I walked across the street and made a left turn. Look at me, I'm great. That's what he does, and as we know, if you say it long enough, people will believe it, and that's really what we have to do. But from an African American standpoint, we saw atrocities under the Trump administration because he gives the police carte blanche to do whatever you want to do. Stop and frisk, hit them in the head when they're going in the car. We don't care. And from an African American standpoint, we are concerned. You know, we are concerned about having a hall pass for bigotry and hatred, because that's really what it's about. And the wake-up call to me was like, they don't like you.
But you know what though, Karen? So it's scary to us, right? But if we asked a 19-year-old or if we asked a 15-year-old African American, would they even recognize the statement that you made? Would they recognize the fear?
Not at all.
Not at all, right?
Not
They
at
don't. It's not for them. It's not real.
They're not connected.
They're not connected.
And they
For
don't
us,
have
it's
that
real.
experience like we do,
Yep.
that we can draw upon.
Yep.
It is for that reason, though, that I'm not afraid.
Mm-hmm.
We can draw on the history of our ancestors and how they got through. It's important for us to stay centered, to be
Right.
aware.
Right.
Yes, being knowledgeable about what the reality of our situation is, and to know how to act within that.
Right.
So that we're able to become empowered. That I believe in. I don't believe that we should put a spirit of fear out there. There's
Well,
certainly
not-
enough to be
not-
highly concerned with.
Not-
Yes.
Yes, highly concerned, not fearful, because we should fear no man.
No, agreed.
But we should be mindful. And you have to kind of be careful.
And vigilant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
You're right about the beating of the chest, because I went off on a tangent because I'm so emotional about all this. But you're right. The Democrats need to be loud and proud. They need to be loud and proud of what their accomplishments are,
right.
and they don't do it the same way that you have to give Trump credit, because he seems authentic even though he's lying through his teeth.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, Dr. Johnson, I'm going to share with you a little something here. As Frankie Beverly would say, I was caught up in my happy feelings when Kamala Harris announced her run for presidency. I could not get enough of all of the positivity and the hope of a new direction that we were going, and what that would mean for everybody. You know, here is somebody that's going to listen to us and take our concerns to heart and try to make things better for us. And when that didn't happen, I kind of withdrew from watching MSNBC, because I was an MSNBC junkie. Joe and Meek in the morning, going out with Stephanie Rule at night, and their ratings now have tanked. But what would you tell people that might be having a hard time or maybe struggling a little bit with wrapping their head around, wow, I didn't think America was like this. I'm living in America, and this is not my belief. How do people cope, or what advice would you give a person that might be going through some type of political blues at this time?
Well, I think the first thing is that we always have to be able to break ourselves up into parts. Because sometimes we're given messages through society and others that we have to feel one way. And I think that one of the themes that's coming through is, in reference to the stages of grief. That model was first developed in reference to death, but then it was expanded later on for what we call living loss, where no one dies, although it may feel that way, but it's more about whenever there's a change can be accompanied by loss, and we can go through those stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and to acceptance. And it's very subjective with that model. No one can tell you can only be grieving a certain amount of time. And also, usually what happens, we might not go through them as succinctly as I said them, but we might go through a few, some time passes, we go through a few more. A good friend of mine lost his mother, this was several years ago, and he said it was like his emotions were like waves in an ocean.
Yes.
See that big
Yes.
one coming is going to knock you over. That slight one that you thought you could ride and knock you over, and some of the small. So I think that it's very helpful when we don't try to feel like we have to feel one way. It's kind of like putting a round object in a square object. It's just not going to fit. So open up your feelings in reference to however you're feeling. Get to a mental health clinician if you need that, or self-help groups, a safe space where you can explore and understand your feelings, your thoughts, and your actions around this. I think also breathing exercises and meditation, keeping active, because sometimes we sit with our feelings, and when we just do that, we just want to push them down. And we have to be very careful about that, because when we push them down, they come out in some way, and sometimes those ways are maladaptive. We talk about drinking and gambling and all these types of things. I think that also we have to, there's a concern with this about, we feel powerless in a way, our
Yes.
power is taken.
Very much
And,
so.
maybe in a global way we don't feel so powerful, but our internal power is still there, and that we can still be involved, like we were talking about, on local levels, through peaceful marching, petition signing, these types of things that we could still do. I think for some people that are spiritual, whatever there is, whatever their denomination is, so prayer and whatever they feel comfort in that way, I think community service and volunteerism, and helping your community, being involved in them, because those younger people need nurturance, in these hard times. So the hope, we have to keep the hope going, and we just have to not push our feelings down.
Okay. All right, express ourselves and possibly get into some volunteer work, get outside of yourself to help other people. And for you, Queen Mother Imaku, you were also talking about yoga and meditation. You do that
I've been
as
doing
well?
yoga since I was 12. I'll be 65 next year. And yoga is an excellent way of being able to get in touch with how you feel, to release emotions, to kind of align yourself, and but also it does take you to another place energetically, and it helps to move your emotions. I've been teaching a chair yoga class at a senior center over the last several weeks, and the class number has increased since the election.
Oh, that's interesting.
We'd be doing the meditation portion, then all of a sudden the TV that'd be on in the background would have the news break that would come on, and have to work to bring everybody else back up. And so this has been a process, because people are grieving. People are grieving. And thank you for everything that you shared. It was just completely on point. And also, I want to reiterate that, going to therapy is so vital. It has saved my life. Just being a person of color on this planet, there's a lot of stress. It's very hard. So having a therapist, I love my therapist, and group therapy that I go to every single week, both, it helps to keep me balanced and centered. And so, so thank you for asking about that.
Yes. And Pat, if somebody wanted to volunteer, can you tell us what they can do?
Yes, like you said, in terms of it's almost like group therapy. I'm on the board of New Jersey Federation of Democratic Women. We accept men. And right here in Essex County, Bessie Walker, who's a former councilwoman, she's the president of Essex. You can get involved with them. You can join the Essex County Dems. You can join the Montclair Dems. You can go on mobilize.nj, and you start meeting people and you start working together, and it's kind of like a therapy. Granted, all right, we had a drink session the week after with NJ11. We had a little drink session and we made soup. But you start to get involved, and even like I had said to you earlier, I made this website, streetfactspat.com, where I list documentaries to people to watch. So I feel like, all right, I'm giving something to somebody to say, look at this, or I have an interview with Mikey Sherrill, look at the facts that we've done. I made a little crying video after the last election. But if you get involved with these groups, there's so many groups right here in New Jersey, right here in Essex County that you can get involved with, and you'll see your local leaders. I just went to the toy drive for the Essex County Dems, and your congresswoman was there. There were several mayors that were there, and you can ask them questions. So the more involved you are, and then they'll start doing programs, making phone calls, you won't feel so alone. You'll feel like you're moving forward.
I like that, and that's a great way to end our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for appearing on the panel today. Thank you for your candidness and just sharing with us. And thank you very much, Drew Johnson. And if anybody is interested in possibly continuing therapy because they resonated with what you said, how would people get in touch with you?
So I could be reached by phone 917-568-7524 or by email drewmjohnson.lcsw@gmail.
Okay. Well, thank you for thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on All Things Newark.